Louisa loosely based Amy's character to her younger sister May. Louisa was more boyish and May was more feminine, and like Amy, she slept with a clothes peg in her nose when she was 12. Unlike Amy, who in the book comes to the conclusion that she does not have the genius, May embodied genius. She was a professional artist, and her paintings were exhibited in Paris Salon, and she even wrote and published a book for young female art students called Studying Art Abroad and How to Do It Cheaply. When Louisa and May were young, there was a great deal of rivalry between them. Both were very impulsive and temperamental, and both loved attention. Louisa often called May as the baby of the family, and she was the youngest and often got her way, which annoyed young Louisa. Amy in the novel is shorter than Jo. She has a button nose and heart-shaped face. May and Louisa looked more similar. They were tall and handsome women, with the exception that May was blonde and a lot more feminine. Louisa had dark brown hair, grey eyes. She spent a lot of time outside, and she was often quite tanned, which was not considered very attractive in the 19th century, and she had a high temper. Knowing this, it is easy to understand why she would envy May. Kerr's father, Bronson Alcott, he believed in the idea of an ideal man, and that this ideal person would have a blonde hair, blue eyes, and angelic nature. Bronson was also an abolitionist. He was an active member in the Underground Railway, and the Alcotts hid black slaves in their home, and he lost his teaching position because he took a black child to his school, which also happens in Little Women. Now you'll ask, isn't that contradicting? And it absolutely is. For example, Emerson was often vague with his stance on the topic, whereas Henry Thoreau was very active in the abolitionist movement, which you can also see in Little Woman, when Jo and Frederick take black children to their school, and Frederick is largely based on Henry. Same way as Jo and Amy in the books, Louisa and May did become closer when they matured and learned to control their tempers. They even made trips to Europe together. There is a great deal of Louisa herself in Amy's character, and this might surprise some people. There were times when Louisa did consider marrying for money instead of love, until her mother persuaded her otherwise. In Little Woman, it is actually Amy who says that, "I have learned to sail my own ship, and I am not afraid of storms." The trip that Amy takes with Aunt March in Europe is actually based on Louisa's own experiences in Europe. It is very sad and ironic that there are people who say that, oh, Amy stole Jo's trip, when the trip was actually based on Louisa's own trip. Louisa had lots of insecurities about her looks, and she often compared herself to her sisters, May especially. When Little Woman became very popular and fans started to visit Louisa's home, they were often disappointed when they saw her, because for some reason they imagined Jo to be very pretty and young. Imagine your fans coming to meet you and be disappointed when they saw you. Louisa was very tall. She was taller than most men. According to her niece Lulu, Louisa always had sort of a masculine air around her. She was not very graceful, and that she had a very low voice, like a man's. In the end of her life, Louisa was very ill due to mercury poisoning, so it is very likely that the illness also affected to her appearance. Amy in the novel is written to be someone who is a very visual person. She likes to make things pretty around her. Jo is written to be the opposite, someone who doesn't care that much about looks or appearance, at least not in the beginning of the novel. Laurie in the book is written to be pretty, but the way he is treating Jo is far from pretty. Frederick is written to be unconventionally attractive. He loves her. Henry Thoreau, in fact, he occasionally criticized very feminine ladies, but lots of Henry's critical views were created by consumerism and his critical thinking about capitalism. What he really was criticizing was women who spent a lot of time and money for their appearance. It is easy to see why Louisa had feelings for him. In Little Woman, Jo is horrified with the ideas that she should go to a ball or go for social calls because they require her being more feminine. Frederick is written to be unconventionally attractive because Jo is unconventionally attractive. Being beautified by love is a big part of their romance. Same way, Laurie is written to be conventionally attractive because that way he appeals to Amy's sense of beauty. What often happens in Little Women films is that the filmmakers gush how pretty Laurie is, and then they explain Joe rejecting Laurie by saying that Joe must be gay or ace because it is so difficult for them to understand that Louisa May Alcott or Joe in the novel was not somebody who cared that much about the conventionally good-looking guys. The entire promotion of the 2019 film was based on that. Laurie's creepy behavior towards Joe is constantly being erased in the adaptations, and his storyline with Amy. In the books, the events that lead into burning Joe's manuscript begin much before any theater tickets. I will read you an article from the blog Contagious Grace. I will put a link to the sources if you want to leave her a comment. Quote, I just saw where someone said that Amy deserved to die in the ice because burning Joe's manuscript was basically the same as killing Joe, and I call that bull. First off, the moment we start prizing the created thing over creation, people, whether that's in our literature or in real life, then I believe we miss the point of art. So jot that down. Second, Bronson Alcott, Louisa's father, had this belief that people could be perfected, that you were born a blank state, and with careful correction and guidance you could stay that way. His first daughter supported that theory. She was compliant and thoughtful and quiet and sweet, theory proven. Also, he thought. When Louisa came along, she was wild and rebellious and utterly imperfect. From the start, shattering his theory, he adjusted. He came to believe that if you just work hard enough and diligently enough, you can perfect yourself. This was the kind of moral philosophy Louisa grew up with. Personally, I see it as insufficient and utterly imperfect, but it has some merits, truths wrapped up in it. The primary one being that, 1. People can change for the better. The start of Little Woman, the book includes Mommy gifting each of her daughters with a copy of Pilgrim's Process, an allegorical tale about all the obstacles and temptations and struggles that a man passes through in life in the pursuit of God. And Mommy challenges her girls to pick up their burdens and embark on their own journeys. Each of them have different sins and struggles that are their burdens. For Joe, that is her pride and temper. For Amy, it's her pride and envy. In this situation, Amy burning the manuscript and Joe letting Amy fall through the ice, both of their greatest sins are on full display, and both see the very real potential consequences of their sins. Amy doesn't lose her sister's love because she falls through the ice, and Joe gets a chance to realize that her anger and unwillingness to forgive could have caused not just her relationship with her sister, but her sister altogether. They literally and figuratively survive it all. They get grace, and in that grace they grow. Consequences of bad choices have to be experienced, seen in some way to generate growth. This is true both in life and in storytelling. And in this way, Alcott illustrates the two ideas at the core of her thesis. People can grow and be better, but they can only become the best versions of themselves. The ideal woman is not just a quiet woman who stays home and cares for her children and sews her family's clothes. Nor is the ideal woman a writer who supports her family through her talent. Nor is she a great artist. She can be all of those things or none of those things. She must simply be good while being herself. To divorce yourself from yourself is to divorce yourself from who you were made to be. Meg's personality and dreams are Meg's personality and dreams for a reason. Jo trying to live Meg's life wouldn't have made her a better person. And so on with each sister, just as little Louisa could not be little Anna. All four women grow to become the people they were meant to be, and while doing that, they also become better morally. Jo's stubbornness and anger and pride transforms her into a determined, loving and sacrificial woman who has honed her talents for the good of others as much as, if not more than herself. Amy's envy and pride and obsession with appearance transforms into humility and integrity, and loving the people around her in a way that makes them more beautiful versions of themselves. This is long-winded and probably making less and less sense, so I will end with point 3. Don't come for Amy, she is my girl. In the Little Woman group that I am part of, there was a discussion on the portrayal of this scene in the 2019 film. I'll read you that as well. And this is from Forbes Romanoff. Rewatching Little Woman and I am annoyed at Jo March. Was Amy burning her journal a shitty thing to do? Yes, it was. And as a writer myself, I am not excusing it. If someone destroyed all my writings, I'd be very mad too. Would I physically attack them over it, though? No, I would not. Jo is also annoying me when they neglect to inform Amy that Beth is sick. Jo says, Amy has always had a talent for getting out of the hard things in life. Sorry, what? Amy gets attacked by you. Amy gets hit by her teacher. Amy has to be without her father. Amy gets sent away from her family when Beth is first sick. Amy nearly drowns. Amy deals with her family neglecting to inform her that her sister is sick. How is that Amy getting out of the hard things in life? How is it Amy's fault for not being told that her sister is sick? Not to mention, Amy also had to miss her sister's funeral because no one had informed or prepared her beforehand that Beth was sick. Also, Jo saw Amy coming to the ice skate with her and Laurie and neglected to warn her about the very thing that led her to nearly drown. We saw Laurie warn Jo. This was answered by my friend Christina, who runs the best Little Woman blog in the world, which is under the umbrella in Tumblr. In regards to Jo attacking Amy, Jo was notorious for having a terrible temper, and the event on the ice rink is what made Jo realize her mistake in overreacting and not controlling herself. The fact that her sister nearly died because of her made Jo want to become a better person and learn how to better communicate with people. This is probably why it felt like Jo was such a terrible person throughout the movie, because the lesson didn't stick. The way Jo treated Amy after the ice skating incident was one of my biggest complaints with the movie. Nowhere in the book did Jo continue to harbor harsh feelings towards Amy or ever felt that Amy got out of things. If anything, Jo was more disappointed in herself for not being what Aunt March wanted in a companion, was happy for Amy and Laurie being married because she knew they were perfect for each other. It constantly felt as though Gerwig was pitting Jo and Amy against each other for no other reason than to make you want to like Jo more, but the characterization of Jo in the movie is just god-awful. I'm not sure what Gerwig was trying to achieve with adding unnecessary conflict between these two instead of showing their character growth within themselves and in their relationship with each other. I've heard a couple people saying that Louisa somehow made 180-degree turn with Amy's character when she started to write Little Woman Part 2. I disagree with this because in the first part of the novel, Jo's flaws are very much out there and her temper is very much out there. In Part 2, when sisters actually start to get more close with one another, this is a natural part of life and also something that happened in reality. Louisa and May did grow closer as they matured and they started to understand each other better. Amy's behavior as a child was childish because she was a child. Jo's behavior is also childish because she is constantly making fun of Amy because she is so girly, and Amy makes fun of Jo because she is so boyish. Only adaptation which shows arguments from both sides, and not just Amy making fun of Jo, is the modern Little Woman adaptation from 2018. All Jo's moral lessons have to do with her temper, but also the fact that Jo can be very judgmental. All Amy's lessons are about her vanity and popularity. In the beginning, Amy's desire to become a lady is a way for her to get out of poverty. But as she grows, it becomes a tool for her self-improvement, and thanks to that, Amy begins to control her temper beautifully. In an interview, Gillian Armstrong, who directed the 1994 film, said that there should always be two actresses to play Amy. There are over 20 adaptations of Little Woman and only 2 versions where child Amy has been played by a child actress. In most Little Woman adaptations, the 12-year-old Amy has been played by an adult woman. For some time now there has been a theory going on that Amy did have a crush on Laurie already as a child. I tried to read the book this way and I think it does work. It is an interpretation, but it does give a deeper context Why did Amy burn Joe's manuscript? Because a 12-year-old does not necessarily know how to handle their feelings in a mature way, especially if they have a crush to their big sister's best friend. The 1994 film does have a sweet scene with young Amy and Laurie in the carriage together and a promise of a kiss. I have heard some people complaining that Amy's and Laurie's relationship is creepy in the 1994 film. Now, if this comes from the people who remember Laurie transitioning from a teen to an adult in the film, but Christian Bale was 19 when he played Laurie. 2019 film, on the other hand, has been criticized that Timothée Chalamet does not go through the transition, so he never looks as an adult in the movie. And if I remember right, he was 24 during the filming. 2018 and the 2019 films go with this idea that Amy already had a crush on Laurie as a child. Kirsten Dunst has later revealed that when she played Amy in the 1994 film, she had a big crush on Christian Bale. Art imitates life. Amy has been given a stamp of a social climber, but she isn't one. And for some reason that I don't understand, this scene from A Little Woman book is not in the adaptations. I may be mercenary, but I hate poverty and don't mean to bear it a minute longer than I can help. One of us must marry well. Meg didn't, Joe won't, Beth can't yet. So I shall, and make everything okay all around. So the reason why Amy wants to marry rich is so she can take care of her family. Amy grows up in an environment where there isn't a great deal of options for women. She believes that marrying well, she could uplift her family away from poverty, even if it would mean that she herself would not be the happiest person.